would you do something for me? Greetings. What can I do for you?
How can I be of service? Would you do something for me? What can I do for you? Stay a moment. How can I be of service?
How can I be of service?
And I'm also realizing that OBS has been lying to me about my mic input level, and Windows has been screwing me this entire time. So, yeah. Thank you, Windows Updates. Sitting there watching that bar bounce. There was nothing actually going on audio-wise. So to summarize my ramblings and freaking out, I rebuilt my legendary items last night or the night before, so that among other things, I have a pair of these Heraldry of the Keen Lions. So these give me basically 2 pieces of the precision set, as well as 2 of the Grand Willpower to give me the 2-piece tactical mitigation set and a bunch more tactical mitigation. And then a Word of Craft Fury, specifically for that 5% bonus Devastate magnitude, which is basically huge. What that means is it has the extra crit rating on this tracery, but also just that when I crit, my crits hit 5% harder. So that Devastate magnitude is huge. And then just an extra heroic precision to round it out. Obviously, there's no 3% set bonus, but it's just, hey, have 41,000 more crit rating. What I was really worried about is I noticed partway through that my finesse rating had dropped from being just shy of that 50% cap that I should be sitting at to 42.9%, down into this 999,000 BS. Not realizing that I had been going back and forth between looking at my stats while I was in either a delving or a group instance in parts of them, and then the other parts out in the open world or in a regular mission with the group difficulty setting on. I'm playing this character at difficulty 3 just to goof off and get some more challenge. And the way that the game represents your penalty to hit mobs of your equal level is it is artificially lowering my finesse rating. So that's where my missing 200,000+ finesse rating went. And I've been driving myself insane trying to figure out where I lost that in rebuilding my gear and tweaking my spec and all of the things I'd been doing. Nope. It's just how it's displayed with the landscape difficulty, and I have wasted an inordinate amount of time trying to figure out where 200,000 odd finesse just randomly disappeared to in the sky. It's going to be one of those days. But now I really want to see how that extra tac mit is going to work in here, because I cannot single pull mobs in here, so I probably am going to have multiple of those puddles of fire that I'm going to have to deal with. So here's where it's going to be really interesting to see if not only the extra general tactical mitigation rating, but that 1.5% from the 2-piece willpower traceries will actually hopefully let me stand in some of this fire. That is much nicer. I still do take a significant amount of damage from it, but I also had bleeds rolling. Hey, how's it going, man? I saw you hopped in the other night when I was goofing off, but I missed saying hi to you. 140 can feel really different and daunting. It really isn't, because a lot of the stuff you do at 140 you have learned through the first maybe 60 levels or so if the game really teaches you most of the core systems. I know at level 21 you don't have things like your legendary items here, which is where a lot of your character building comes in. You'll start getting those in the late 40s to early 50s, and these are basically pieces of gear. Every class has 2 different pieces of gear. Usually it's your primary weapon and then a class item that you periodically level up with you as you level, and they become more powerful, not only vertically, they, just their numbers go up, but you get more and more of these customization slots where you can put these different traceries in to really start making them specialized. So you're level 21, just have fun and enjoy the game and goof off. It's going to teach you all the stuff that I am rattling off here. It won't be nearly as complex as it looks to you. It's just that you have more ways to build and specialize your characters when you get to high level. That it broadens out more. And also, like a lot of this stuff that I'm talking about here, where I'm running my buffs and I'm looking at things like getting my ratings as close to the soft caps as I can get them. This isn't stuff that you have to worry about unless you want to be rating at 140 and really pushing it towards as high as you can get them. I typically, like, my kin is very relaxed and casual, so we raid probably every other week. I have not done anything particularly hard. I just like knowing stuff like this, so I am way over prepared on this character, frankly. I do not need this level of absolute nerdery to do the stuff that my kin does most of the time. So you can absolutely get to level 140 and not have to spend nearly as much time going over the minutia of stats as I've just been rambling on about. Oh, I got too close to the sapper. I should probably get a heal going. I just like things like being able to stand in some of this bad here, largely because this character is a champion, so I'm playing melee DPS, and in group play, there's a lot of times where you'll get puddles of fire on the ground or poison or something else that you're not going to be able to fully avoid. And I like making the healer's job easier, so I've been trying to find ways to fit more tactical mitigation, which is the stat that reduces incoming fire and poison and stuff like that damage, so that as a DPS, I'm not putting a strain on my healers. That's purely my nerdery. How many hours does it take to get to 140? That is a really good question, and it's going to depend on if you are just straight up like XP grinding and trying to take the most efficient level 1 to level 40 route, or if you're playing more naturally and doing more content. There are people who do the real like level blitz, and as soon as they get to 20, they'll start running missions instead of questing, or they'll try and find a very optimized path through the game to get to 140. For a first-time character, I really don't like that approach for two reasons. One, you're just going to miss out on a lot of the world doing that, and that's a personal thing. Some people, they're totally fine with that. But where you're really going to hurt yourself if you take that approach of just straight XP grinding is you're going to miss out on doing a lot of like doing these quests in these zones, killing X number of mobs in these zones, deeds. And you've probably already seen those come up as you're leveling, like, hey, I'm leveling on the Shire. Oh, there's the Wolf Slayer deed. Kill 30 wolves. Now you get the advanced version, kill 60 wolves. Those deeds give you XP towards your virtues here. Your virtues are a huge part at 140 of how effective your character is. So if you beeline level from 1 to 140, you're probably not doing a lot of the different zone deeds and quest deeds out there, and you're going to end up with severely underperforming virtues. So you'll get there, and all of these things that give you your secondary stats, like zeal here, this maxed out zeal is giving me 13,000 might, 42,000 physical mastery, and 26,000 crit rating, plus some physical mastery on top of it passively. And so these 5 slottable virtues at 140 are absolutely massive towards boosting your character's stats. As a pure point of reference, this character's played time is just over 3 weeks now. So it's not a massive time crunch compared to some other games, but this is also a character that I've played well past 140. So I don't have a good hard and fast. I would say probably half to a third this time. So maybe a week and a half of / played time. So 7 days times 24 hours in that 150 hour range. Maybe a little bit more if it's your first time, if you don't have a kin, so you're not, you don't have people necessarily to help you out through things and do group stuff with periodically. So I very long-winded and very roundabout answer, I know, but I would, especially for your first character, I would not worry about beelining to 140, because you're not going to have all of your stuff leveled up if you just blitz from 1 to 140. Let's go kill these gobbies down here. There should be a stealth one wandering around someplace. I should probably get out of the fire, huh? Let's see, the sheer amount of tactical mitigation that I have on this character is what let me stand in that fire for that long. And a large part of my tactical mitigation comes from the fact that I have worked on leveling my fidelity virtue, which gives me 114,000 of that tactical mitigation. Yeah, so this is your first time through, like just recently picked the game up, making a first character, is what it sounds like. I'm going to tell you what a lot of us people who have played for a long time are going to tell you. I'm more than a little bit jealous, because there's no way to do the whole like go back and play the game again for the first time. So enjoy your first run through, because you don't get a first time through a game, right? Oh, 3 days ago, you're really new. Awesome, man. Welcome to the game. So, and I see you're playing champion, so you've chosen well. I might be biased. It is really funny because I normally play healers most of the time, like as a default in MMOs. This is the only game where I have basically like mained a melee DPS class, and it's just because I absolutely fell in love with the champion. I always stayed away from it. I always figured that I would hate the champion because, melee DPS has never been my thing. I made one, started playing it, and I have not looked back. I'm just going to have to deal with the fact these guys are going to get some spells off on me, because they're dropping a lot of fire. Yep, there we go. There's the fear effect. And they're going to put me into these guys. Okay, mistakes have been made. All right, whoops. Yeah, as far as MMO communities, especially just as a whole, there are two games that I will regularly hold up against basically any other modern or semi-modern MMO, and that's Lotro and Final Fantasy XIV for very different reasons. The nice thing is I actually got the chief killed before I died, so I can just turn to this mission and down here. Out of curiosity, what server are you playing on? I just always like to find out where people are. Oh, it might make me go back down there and finish off one of those guys. Ha, there we go. I just had to walk away from him. I hear a lot of good things about Gladden. I know that it's that a lot of people say it's pretty active in some of the primetime time zones. So I can't imagine that's a bad choice. You're right. I know that Crick Hollow. I hear that as far as just overall population, it's generally considered one of the highest. I think a lot of people say about Crick Hollow that it is high population, but not a specific focus of the players on the server, if that makes sense. Arkenstone is a high population server that has probably the most people doing high-end grouping and group content. Like a lot of people will say if your end goal is like you play Lotro for the rating and stuff, play on Arkenstone. Landreval, where I play on, is a little bit more casual, but it has a lot of very community-focused community. If that, I know that sounds kind of redundant. It's a RP encouraged server, meaning that it has a large RP or role-playing population, but you're not going to be knocked for not engaging in it. It's just what that ends up being is that it is a very welcoming and friendly community. I don't really think there's a bad server choice out there. Well, also, like you said, you're level 20 or so. Doesn't hurt to just make a new character at that point. Transfers are friggin' expensive in terms of points. They're really only aimed at people who've been playing for a long time and have a lot of points piled up. I wouldn't transfer. Maybe make a character over here and just see if you like the server. Treat it as a vacation. I'm going to be the last person to say, oh, you have to play on server X or Y or Z. Every server has their own different thing. Well, that depends. I mean, I'm always going to say play a class that you enjoy playing or strikes your fancy. You'll still be able to find people to play with. It also depends on if you plan to play in groups or more just explore the world solo and quest primarily, because there are definitely classes that do better just in terms of making your soloing and questing easier. And two of those are absolutely champion or hunter. Champion, you have a little bit more survivability and toughness than a hunter does. Hunter, you have more mobility and you'll get more travel skills. Both of those classes are excellent just exploring the world and seeing the world class choices. I would never knock either one of those. I'm very fond of both of them. Guardian, I like playing a Guardian, but I also like tanking. And a Guardian in a soloing and questing capacity, because they, even in a red line, a Guardian, it doesn't do a ton of damage, can be slower getting through quests. So sometimes it can be a little bit frustrating because it feels like you hit like a wet noodle, even in a damage spec, but it's still a fun class. I'm always going to recommend Champion for a first character, or Hunter. Either one of those two are just really solid learning the game characters because they are very capable, and unlike in a lot of other MMOs, you will find people like end game groups. If you get all the way to level 140 and you start looking for groups, both champions and hunters are asked for. People want you in groups. So it's not, Lotro isn't like a lot of other MMOs where when you look at high-end grouping, you playing a DPS class just flat out excludes you from being wanted in most groups because there's 8 million other DPS out there. DPS is actually actively sought after, especially champion. Champion DPS is really liked in people who are looking for groups. I regularly in the looking for fellowship chat see people advertising raids, and they'll be 10 of 12 hidden horde tier 2 looking for redline captain and champion DPS. So play what you like. I'm inclined towards champion. And I think this was the only one. Yeah, I don't want to do any of these ones here. So the next thing that I'm gonna go run through and test this build out in. So what you just saw me doing in there, Lotro has a system of little solo or duo mini quests that a lot of people like to use to level their characters, called missions. I don't like leveling your character with missions because, again, it means that you tend to lose out on a lot of virtue XP from being out in the world questing and killing things, but they're nice little bursts of XP. When you get to level 140, you can start running those missions with tiered increased difficulty and extra enemy effects. And that's what I was just doing in there, was I was running a mission with the Delving system active to add some extra challenge, because you get a little bit of extra reward for it, but it's also because I'm testing this gear and build. What I'm going to go do now is this is the new Return to Carn-Dûm area, which came in, I want to say beginning of the year or so. And it is a little cluster of instances. It is 3 instances, 2 of which can be run at solo, duo, or 3-man, and 1 of which can be run solo, duo, and I would think 6-man, and then there's a raid also. So I'm going to go hop into a solo version, but because I have the landscape difficulty set to tier 3, and it's not a delving where it's a solo, because I'm in solo duo, technically this increased difficulty is going to be active in there, so it actually will be really interesting. I like the Minstrel a lot. Minstrel was actually my first character when the game first launched on my old server of Villia, which is no longer around. It is a very fun and interesting class. It's a cool take on healer. I would not play one as your first character when you're just learning the game and getting started with things. They can become very powerful as a leveling and questing character in the 30s and above. Once some of their class kit starts kicking in. But in the lower levels, you have more that you have to keep track of, and they're more gear dependent than one of the martial classes like champion, guardian, or hunter, where your gear isn't quite as necessary for you to be doing good damage. If you have somebody on a low-level minstrel who's basically handed you a set of really nice overstated gear, and you've gotten over that gear threshold for the minstrel, they can be very good and very effective at low levels. But just the normal progression of the game, I don't think they really kick in until around 30. So it might be frustrating getting used to the game as a low-level minstrel. Sorry, I just wanted to stop and listen to the voiceover because I always like it. Minstrel is very cool. I mean, thematically, you're a cool kick-ass bard. Like, what's not to like? They are very cool. But they can just be a little bit rough as an early game learning curve. All right, so this is a solo/duo little instance here, and because it is not a full group instance but also not a delving, my landscape difficulty of difficulty 3 fearless still applies in here. So I am debuffed and the enemies are buffed. Normally, if I run this without the landscape difficulty setting on, I basically on this character can just wall-to-wall pull this instance in basically 2 big pulls, where I have to stop because I hit a gate where I have to kill the enemies before I can open up the gate. With the landscape difficulty active, I actually have to go through and kill the enemies in their packs, which is a nice little change of pace. All right. Oh, thankfully my stuns lasted really nice on those guys, and I haven't gotten into any trouble so far. Oh, and that's also interesting. I actually just determined that with the increase in tactical damage mitigation that I have on this character, I can stand straight through that Eye of Sauron fireball and not have to duck out of it. I am not regretting the materials that I just spent on my new on my new gear. And again, this is pure like high level min-max nerdery that I am talking about with stuff like that. These are not things that, you know, as a lower level learning the game character, you need to be focusing on or trying to figure out and learn systems like traceries and min-maxing your stats. Don't even worry about the nonsense that I'm babbling about here. Hobbit Hunter. The Shire is still my favorite starting zone. Like even if I make characters of other races, I still almost always bring them into the Shire to do the start of their leveling. I love it so much. Oh, little lag spike. Lag is the final boss in Lotro. It will happen from time to time. Although it has gotten significantly better as of the last couple of patches. The devs have been working on identifying some sources of some of the server hitching they've been seeing. Whoa, okay, bad, very bad. I actually have to pay attention in here now. Oh, this is so cool. And this is just one of those things where when I talk about having to pay attention and things being challenging, it's because this character's kind of stupidly geared for the stuff I do with him. Like, he's not full on tier 3 raid geared or anything like that, but for solo and small group stuff, I am over geared. So being able to selectively crank up some difficulty settings is just making me happy. And yeah, definitely a great way to figure some stuff out is make yourself a few characters and play them all to, 10 or 15 or so. It's not a very big time commitment, but you can kind of get an idea of, hey, here's some basics of the different classes, and you might find one that just gels with you. And another thing you'll start noticing is that the different classes, your different spec lines, your different trait lines, some of the classes that impact your gameplay more than others. Like for champion, yellow and red aren't drastically different in how you approach playing them. They're more your focus as far as single target burst damage versus AoE mob cleaving. Whereas on a hunter, if you look at things like your blue line versus your red line, you play a blue line hunter and a red line hunter very differently, because a red line hunter is a very traditional ranged archer where your shots are going to be very powerful, long range, punchy shots, but you are immobile. Almost all of your skills, you are standing still to execute them. Whereas on a hunter that is blue line, you can move and shoot. You don't hit as fast, and you don't have quite the long range as a red line hunter, but you can move and shoot at the same time, and you have more bleed type effect. So it's more of a mobile skirmisher class. So some classes, the different class spec builds that you'll play with, can drastically change how you play the classes. So most people will tell you that for leveling, the blue line hunter is, for just leveling and questing out in the world, is their favorite because of that mobility and the fact that you can move and shoot and do things. I'm going to agree 100%. I love the blue line hunter because you can always be on the move while you are attacking mobs. You'll be increasing your run speed buff through the blue line, so your out of combat run speed buff that you'll get will be even faster, which increases your moving from point to point. Red line hunter is preferred in group content because of just their sheer damage output, but for leveling and questing, I love blue line hunter. But I do play with a hunter who absolutely loves leveling hunter's red line because they like those big numbers as they as they're leveling and doing stuff. They like seeing that, oh, you hit for what on a mob, and then laugh maniacally. That is one thing that a blue line hunter doesn't get. A blue line hunter gets lots of quicker damage ticks from their quicker shots and their bleeds. Red line hunter has that wind up and punch. But yeah, either hunter or champion are great choices for leveling and learning the game. You might feel a little spoiled by them if you go back and level a slower leveling character later on and realize that you were having the good life there. But by the same token, it can be really fun to have things like a tank or a healer in your arsenal. Now, the other nice thing is when you're leveling and you're looking at your trait panel, over on the right-hand side, you should have tabs labeled 1 and 2. You get 2 specs for free that you can switch back and forth between. So you can make yourself like a blue line build and a red line build and switch between them to see, like, hey, I'm level 12, 13, or what have you. I'm going to keep my blue line build that I'm leveling in, and I'm going to switch to tab 2, make that into a red line build, and just see, hey, how's that compare to what I've been doing so far? You might find that you like something that goes against the meta. Oh, that was bad. I did not save enough fervor there. Almost biffed that. This is the problem where I'm used to this guy basically being dead already at this point. Okay, not bad. Didn't even have the potion on that guy. Right, come on, lively box. Dang it. Didn't get the loot I was looking for. Oh well. And I will deal with the mess that is my inventory at another time. So do any of these have finesse? There we go. Great Cleave has finesse. Rib bag, where are you at? Inching ever closer and closer to having all of my pieces of these LIs at their max level, which is good. Yeah, I just need a bunch of the teal runes on this guy, and I'm simply not going to spend the resources for him. Not with an expansion later on this year. So let's see. Am I close to... Nope, I've got plenty of room left on Delving Rets, so I can keep doing those. Let's see what Klager has today. Day on the farm, among the watchtowers, dangerous deliveries, and mother of wolves. I don't really want to do any of those, to be honest. But I want to keep doing these, so we'll do among the watchtowers. Because it should have minimal fire on the ground. And these delvings, when you do them, you can basically set the difficulty anywhere from tier 1 for a little bit of extra difficulty up through tier 12. Tier 7 is just kind of a nice midpoint. They must hate it when I let them get the cast bar almost all the way finished and then interrupt them. I'm just going to let this fire go out a bit here. And this is why it's important to eat food and remember to cleanse your bleeds, because I almost ignored both of those and let myself die of one wound. Nah, come on, dude. I got something to show you. Come with me. Come on, man. I'm trying to do you a solid here. All right, and he should be back at the wolf now. I'm just keeping my eye out for any stray bees or wargs, because those are slayer deeds for this zone that I want to complete. Even though I have all of my core offensive virtues basically at max level, I am working up some of the defensive ones so that I can slot them in if I need them. or if I decide that I want to have a good working blue line spec on this guy someday. Because it would be fun to tank on a champ again. And yes, I'm going to be stubborn and stand here through the heals and just try and out DPS them. See how that goes for me. Usually not great. One more B. So this will be 51 of 60 to finish off the advanced deed and get myself some more virtue XP. And, oh yeah, working on tolerance right now because I've got fidelity and loyalty both pretty well done. Tolerance is one that will give me tactical mit, resistance, and physical mit. So kind of a good primary, an okay secondary, and a good tertiary defensive stat. So one that would not be bad to be able to have decently leveled to slot into a defensive build. Oh. Don't even have to mount up to find the next one. There's one right there. So that should be what, 7 more bees, 6 more bees left? At any rate, awfully close. I think what I'll probably do after that is, or rather after I turn this quest in, is to go to the Warg camp and see if I can finish that one off real quick. So I think I'm about halfway through advanced on that. Well, there doesn't actually need to be mobs here. I'm trying to like go complete the touching moment quest. Look, it's kind of rare that quests and MMOs get to give you a legitimate little happy ending, even if it's a mini one, so I'll take those when I get them. So this will be stinging bee 56 out of 60. And there's 57 up ahead. And this will be Warg 24. So I'm further behind on that one, but there is a place that has a pretty good concentration of wargs as long as I don't get overrun by them. Because the real worry in there is if they start stacking bleeds or the Eye of Sauron ground effects on me. Or if I can't cleanse their corruptions fast enough. Or I'll just take some really good luck on warg spawns out here to get a little bit of a jump. Not going to complain. That's B58. 2 more bees, and I'll be done with that, and I won't have to keep watching for bees to stop by the side of the road and kill them. Which will be kind of nice. So the warg encampment should be ahead and to the left along this road here. Is this wargs or bandits? This I think is wargs. Bandits is further down the road. Yeah, this is wargs because this is the burned out pit. Come on, one more bee. Nope, too easy. And before I go in here, I'm just going to make sure I've got my food buffs running, because that's going to be a difference maker. Doubt I'm going to do anything like finish this on this run, because that would be just a lot of sitting around killing wargs, but if I can make some good progress, I'll be happy. Killed him just as he put a corruption on himself. Ha ha. And of course there's a stalker there. I forgot just how good this place is for wargs. So I'm already at 44 of 60. And haven't had any truly hairy moments, although the 3-pull might change that a little bit. Nope. Haha. Champion reigns supreme once more. I will find it hilarious if I actually finish wargs before I finish bees. But it's looking like I'm actually going to. This place is just too target rich. I have to be at the point where I only need like 2 or 3 more of these guys, I'll bet. Yep, 2, because this guy will be 59. Oh. All right, completed Warg Slayer Advanced. I can get the heck out of here. And that opened up the Zone Slayer deed, the meta deed. So what all is in Slayer of West Gondor? Oh, that should be, I think, my last bee. So, bandits, beasts, corsairs. Oh, this isn't the one I want. Renewal of Gondor. There we go. Just put it in the wrong one. Okay, Slayer of... Okay, so there's 3. I've got Warg done. I need bees and worms. That's right. So, okay, that's still going into tolerance. Yeah, keep going into tolerance for the moment. And this will be the last of the bees. So Worm Slayer, I think I can actually get on the other side here by the river. So if I skirt around the Warg camp and just go right around, I think the Avanks are worms. Okay, excellent. So this is going to be really interesting with their bleeds on landscape difficulty. I'm wondering how bad these tick for. That one didn't land a bleed, so I don't know. But the thing with the Avank mobs is that they have a bleed, a persistent dot debuff that all Avanks like to put on you to one degree or another. And I'm just really curious how bad it is if I get it at landscape difficulty with their buff and my debuff. Looks like these ones are basically just trying to outright kill me instead of put the bleeds on. Which I think is a mistake on their part tactically. Because I would not be surprised if that bleed is nasty scaled up. There it is. Yep, so that is ticking for 120,000 a tick. Definitely got to purge that. And also renew my scrolls. So that is definitely good to know that the Avank's bleeds are... Yeah, they're nothing to sneeze at. Definitely have to cleanse those off as soon as they land. Which I kind of figured, because even with no difficulty ramping, the Avank bleeds in normal circumstances can take you down if you are unsuspecting, so to speak. Okay, there should be just kind of a bunch of them hanging out in this general area in the woods around the river. Don't want to go all the way to the bandit camp, though. So embedded slimy tooth is the debuff that he's doing here. And its base damage is 53,000 per tick, but of course that's buffed with the landscape difficulty to basically double damage and change. So that is absolutely one that I've got to clear off as soon as it lands, because that ain't... Oh, then there it is again, just eating me alive. Oh, come on. There we go. Oh, no problem, man. Welcome back. And trust me, I know all about work calls at all hours. Been there, done that, got the t-shirt. I am just doing some monster slaying to see how hard these guys' bleeds that they land. These guys have a nasty dot called embedded slimy tooth. I wanted to see how hard it hits me for, and yeah, it does between 90 and 120,000 a tick. It's not fun. But I'm out in the new King's Gondor area, which is the area that the latest content in the game, which is kind of story content that is post current content, kind of the stuff that's been going for a little while and is leading up to the expansion that's supposed to be releasing later on this year, story-wise. So the area I'm in is King's Gondor, or Renewal of Gondor, so it's all post-war stuff, level 140 zone. And I'm just getting some of these Slayer deeds done to work on my virtues. And also just test how nasty those bleeds are. I got bees and wargs killed. Now I just need these river avanks. I've got 35 of 60 done. Yeah, if you ever see this mob type in the game, these big scaly lizard guys, even on just plain Jane normal running around difficulty, not with anything turned on to crank it, Watch out for the bleed they put on you because it's nasty on regular difficulty. On cranked difficulty, it sucks. So I'm finding that I have to basically purge that off of myself, cleanse that off of myself as soon as I see that hit. So I'm kind of taking that as practice. Oh, and this dude landed it. I cleansed it, and then he landed a second one. That's just cheating. Always have to stop and wave to other players running by, especially that dude looks like a pretty decked out dwarf champion. Champion to champion respect, you know. Don't need any more bees, but there we go. More of these dudes. I think I've hit the jackpot with these guys. I have found where they congregate. Now I just need to figure out how to keep pulling them without getting overwhelmed by them. Because 2 is doable, especially if I have cooldowns up that I can burn. But more than that, and they can just stack that bleed on me faster than I can keep cleansing it off. I don't know if that's going to pull 2 or 3. 2. Okay, got lucky. I don't know, maybe a kind of a weird thing, but I always feel a little bit bad whenever the mob type that you're killing is a bunch of adults, like all of these regular Avanks, and then like, oh, there's a young Avank, or bear cubs or things like that. It's like, can I just leave them alone and only do the adults? I know it's stupid, they're pixels, but feels a little bit like you're the bad guy when you do that. Okay, if I can get 2 more of these, I should be done with them. Not sure if this one's walking over to be a single pull or if he's going to pull his friends. He pulled a friend. I will live. All right, excellent. So that got me Wormslayer of Lost Narc done, which completed the Slayer deed for getting all 3 of the Slayer types for another burst of Virtue XP. And so that's let me take Tolerance all the way from 24 to 28, so making progress on that one. Excellent. And that is the last of the Slayer deeds in this little zone here, so I don't need to worry about finishing off any more of those. I can just wrap up quest stuff. But all of those Slayer deeds, or complete X number of quests in a zone, or explore points of interest in a zone, all of those deeds add up to getting your virtues going and making progress on those, which is huge for building your character and building those stats up. Oh yeah, and speaking of, if you're still hanging around lurking, I know the game doesn't do a great job of showing you that, but when you hit J and go into the little bird icon for your virtue panel, one of your virtues will have the earning designation on it. That's the specific virtue that you are currently, any virtue XP you get will be put towards to level it, so you can kind of pick which one you want to be working on. If you haven't gone in here and selected one off of the default, it'll be giving you charity. Charity is not the worst virtue to be making progress on, but it is definitely not within your top 5 or 7 that you'd want to be getting first. So it's always a good idea really early on in your character life to hit J, go to the little bird icon for your virtue traits, and left click a different virtue, one that you actually want to be putting experience towards, so that you start leveling something that's really going to make an impact for you other than charity. When in doubt, 2 first two really good first virtues to work on are zeal and fidelity. And the reason for that is, sorry, not zeal. My bad. Wit. Wit and fidelity. I get the two mixed up. And the reason for that is that wit gives you just a great smattering of offensive stats. It gives you finesse rating, which is the decreases enemies' chance to block, parry, or evade your attacks. So if you've played other games, other MMOs, think of finesse kind of like your hit rating. It gives you critical rating as its second stat, and it gives you physical and tactical mastery as the third stat. So that means it's a good virtue for any offensive class, whether you're magic damage, which is tactical, or physical damage, which is physical. So it is just a straight up good offensive item to start working on. As far as defensive for your first virtue to start looking at, either fidelity or loyalty are both good choices. Loyalty gives you vitality, armor value, and incoming healing rating. Doesn't suck. And is a strong choice, especially because it gives you a lot of vitality for its budget. I personally really like fidelity more because I like mitigations over just a raw health pool. I like to take less damage rather than having more health to heal through that gets chipped away at quicker. So I really like fidelity because it gives you tactical mitigation, which is a little harder to come by for a lot of classes. So that reduces fire damage, acid damage, lightning damage, stuff like that, which usually is the annoying damage types that enemies will do to you. Then it gives you some vitality. Then it gives you some more mitigation in physical mitigation. So it gives you both mitigation types and vitality for your raw health. It is just a great overall defensive virtue. But you always want to have something set as earning on this panel that you're working towards as you start getting that virtue XP coming in from doing deeds and stuff. And the default first choice it's going to have there is charity, and that's not a good first virtue. That is a supplemental virtue for some builds. Just going to pop over to town here real quick and then take a horse over to Imlith Melul. Right, and here I get to report that I've made a happy ending for Farmer Dude who was isolating himself. And seriously, any quest you can get that has a happy ending, take them when you get them. And that gave me another teal rune, so time to see where I need to put that. Great Cleave. keep leveling up that LI. And I think that with that quest turn in, that is going to be where I'm going to call it for the night. Because running around killing stuff for a couple of hours, got some good opportunities to test out the build tweaks I made, as well as realizing that I'm a complete idiot on the joys of why I was not seeing my full finesse rating. Oops. But overall, successful stream. Got stuff killed.